Yeah, you got it.
Say, Pat, y'all registration or anything? For the Lincoln Day? Got everything covered? Good. Just thought I'd over again. Well, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Are you going to the dinner?
Precinct chairs, we need you to sign in.
All right. Is everybody already signed in? We're 2 minutes behind schedule, and that's all on me. So, if you haven't signed in, please sign in now. We're going to detect our quorum and move on.
What are we signing?
Down there.
Does everybody have a seat that needed a seat? There's a couple more chairs over by the table here. We got more chairs in the back row. We've got 2 or 3 chairs up here. Okay. We're going to call the order at 5:33. Thank you all for coming. Sorry we got to do this again, so let's try and make it quick. Thank you all for showing up. Tonight, we're going to kick off with an invocation. Do I have a volunteer? Oh, I see him. Mr. Halsey, would you care to say a prayer for this evening's meeting? We got a mic for you if you want it.
No, it's all right. Lord Jesus, we come to you. We seek your oversight in our meeting tonight. We pray for those who speak. Lord, we are called together to elect conservatives, honor your name in our halls of leadership. And Lord, we just pray that each person here would be attentive to that goal. And so use us in our communities, use us to do your work, and we pray this in the strong name of Jesus, and all God's people said.
Amen. All right. Mr. Montes, would you be kind enough to lead us in both pledges this evening, sir? American flags on the left side.
to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the flag of the greatest state in the Union.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Okay, if you have not checked in, please check in on that table. And at that time, we'll be able to establish that we have at least quorum, yes? Okay, for tonight, if you have a motion, point of order, any of that stuff, I'm going to ask you to stand where you're at. Matt will bring you a microphone. Once you've been recognized, you can go ahead and speak. I'm going to ask you to tell me what it is you're wishing to do, or ask, or whatever, and we're going to go from there. I know there was some concern that we didn't have a second mic working, so I was here yesterday to make sure that it was working. As of this time, I do not have any precinct chairs being nominated or resigning, so we're going to be skipping that. And before we get started, do we have a count? Can we? Okay. Well, we're good on quorum. We've got more than 25%, so we're going to carry on. Okay. First up, Mr. Kemp. Come on up and tell us about what you've been doing in the time from last June's organizational meeting till now that we actually have a PCRB.
Hi, my name is David Kemp, and back last summer, Shelby had asked me to lead a PCRB team. It took me a little while to figure out, what that even meant. I actually didn't get vetted years ago. I sort of ran instead. And, the name has changed, PCRD, PCRB. And so, in fact, originally the HD chairs did their own vetting, apparently. 6 chairs did the vetting for the 6 districts. Now, when the PCRB committee came along, it seemed like the only thing they ever did was vet. They never did any recruiting. The HDs had to do that. They never did any development. Terry and Troy Patterson and other people have done development. So it seems like the only thing they did was vetting. Now, the PCRB committee did not meet regularly, and instead they would have a meeting when they had some candidates who were accumulated. Sometimes it took a while. Took a long time for all the HD chairs to get scheduled at the same time, and so I heard from the HD chairs it was very much of a delaying factor. It really didn't help very much. And also they had a spreadsheet I learned on Google Docs where they would track some of the candidates, but it was used very infrequently, not updated very often. So after I got in there and was working on it last summer and fall, or beginning to, that was when we were in the election of the century, right? And so the last thing I wanted to do was spend time on some new committee that I didn't even understand. And also I was working very hard on the Steve Kennard campaign, because one thing I like to do is cover precincts that aren't carried, for Linda Block in this case. And so, I didn't really crack into this onion at all. Now, one thing is Jessica Halsey approached Shelby and me about, can she just vet her own precinct chairs during this urgent time of election and stuff? And Shelby looked in the records, and he saw that all it says is the eligible candidate shall be vetted. It doesn't say a word about by whom, how, where, when, or anything else. All it says is it must be vetted. Now, to the best of my understanding, this is still true.
Hold on. Let him finish his comments, and then you can ask questions.
Now, so, with the blessings of Shelby and me, Jessica proceeded to vet a whole bunch of candidates. Got a lot done. I worked a little bit with Linda Block and Jessica on this, just really observing what they were doing, and saw that they could vet candidates quickly and easily. And one thing to understand, of course, is we shouldn't be in the business of resisting candidates. is, these guys typically want to work. They want to work the precinct, and I don't know why we would drag out a process. So in the last half of the year, they quickly vetted 13 candidates that I knew about, sometimes 3 candidates a week. Also, vetting at the HD level, using 1 or 2 of her local precinct chairs, is a very personal kind of a face-to-face meeting where they can sit, get to know the person, understand them a little bit better, rather than some god-awful Zoom call process where you have 15 people or 30 people on a Zoom call, a bunch of anonymous voices grilling a person for a maximum of 15 minutes or something like that. So I think it's a much better way to do it. So I had a couple of loosey-goosey PCRV team meetings, one in November, one in January that was via Zoom. At these meetings, the HD chairs voted unanimously both times to continue vetting in their own HDs. They liked that process, and it speeded things up dramatically. And to include their own precinct chairs as needed in that process. They really wanted to maintain that grassroots local involvement process rather than some bureaucratic structure that bought them nothing. And I saw zero reason to get involved in Tim or Linda or somebody vetting their precinct chairs. So, and remember, they never recruited and they never developed, only vetting. So, I'm sort of in the mode now where I see very little use for this entire committee. And I'm kind of like, if you like what Donald Trump is doing, like shutting down the Department of Education because it's unnecessary and in the way, then I propose that we do the same thing, that we shut down PCRV completely. Now, what I did is I went ahead and set up an official meeting with weeks and weeks of notice for next Wednesday, okay? For the PCRV committee members, now that we've got some named, and the HD chairs, of course. But one of the things I want to do is kind of figure out how can we get rid of this beast, all right? And so I look forward to meeting with you guys next Wednesday, those that are invited, and we will try to resolve that. And it may be a little bit of a gradual process, but we'll try to get that done. Okay.
Okay, those were his thoughts as the chairman. The committee has not made any decisions yet. In fact, the committee's not meeting until next week. At this time, I'll recognize Jared, if you'll please bring him his.
Mr. Callis, I'll take your direction. My name is Jared Shoemaker. I'm precinct chair 28, and I was elected by HG 66 to represent them on the PCRV committee. I don't know what the exact right point of order, point of information to make is, but there were several statements in that presentation that were either inaccurate or frustrating. But first of all, the contention that the rules state nowhere that we don't have anywhere in our rules that state where vetting or who should be doing vetting. Article 5, Section 6 of our rules clearly states that the precinct chair of the recruiting and vetting committee the committee shall recruit qualified vet vacancy applicants. Shall, yes, but it's quite clear what the rules process call for vetting. It's not a mystery, it's not unclear, it's not arbitrary. So I have a concern about how all of the process that David described as being followed currently is in compliance with the way that we adopted and organized our rules back in June. Furthermore, I have a question about continue to represent the PCRV as a team. It is not a team. We organized in June and we adopted these rules, and the PCRV is a standing committee, not a team. So just trying to understand why this was necessary to present before even actually organizing and gathering the committee to meet to discuss valid and worthwhile questions and concerns about priorities and process, but outside of a logical progression of forming the committee first, discussing these things, trying to align on a process, and then moving forward from there. before proposing dramatic rule changes.
So, was there a question in that, or are you just wanting to tell me what your thoughts were? Okay, I'm good with
Why
that.
was it necessary?
Okay, so I'll reiterate. The chairman was doing a role that he found to be unnecessary. He came and spoke in that capacity. You as a committee can do what you think is best. You don't have to take his recommendation. You don't have to take his thoughts. You can ask him to step down. That is all within your power as a committee. So, but it was necessary for him to give an update on what's been going on, in my opinion, and that's why the chairman scheduled it. Jessica, do you have a point of?
This is a point of, I don't know.
I need to know what it is, Jessica.
Point of order.
Point of order?
Okay.
Hold it close.
This is a point of order. The PCRV in the past has left us with 50% in one HD, Lee Moore's.
Okay, so
Can we not?
you're wanting to debate what was said, and that's out of order at this time.
Okay, now.
Well, you'll be able to bring that up at your
Right.
meeting next week.
Let me just ask a point of order to the parliamentarian.
Well, you would ask me, and I'll check with him if I don't know.
You, Stephen,
Yes.
who will then ask the parliamentarian, and I'm good with that. Okay, so Stephen, no, Mr. Chair, I want to read Article 3 where it says about the requirements for each CIT, which is candidate in training. And at that place, it says, when it says vetted, it does not say by whom. That is why I
Okay.
ended up vetting. in
Before
my-
we go there, that's Article 3 in the rules, the bylaws, or the RPT.
And the Collin County rule,
So it's Collin County Standing Rules.
standing rule,
Article 3.
Article 3, which tells what, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, well, if you don't have it, then it's not proper to interrupt to ask for that. We will revisit that at a later time. But again, you're going to have your meeting next week, okay?
Got it.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they wish to add related to this issue, or shall we move on? Lee?
Lee, Breckenridge Moore, Precinct 247. The invitation did not go out to the entire PCRB. The invitation to the PCRB meeting next week did not go out to the entire team, so it only went out to select members. So I don't know that if there's going to be any voting going on, it does need to have
Okay.
a 10-day notice.
No.
All right, thank you. So you're saying that David did not include everybody.
Yes.
David, who was left off?
I don't believe anyone was left off.
Okay, is it possible that Lee wasn't on there because of their switcheroo back in December?
I'm pretty certain.
Okay,
it was on
so
there.
the other person that might have had it is Chrissy. Chrissy, did you receive that notification?
I'm right here.
Yes, did you receive that notification?
Not that I'm aware.
Not that you're aware,
I
okay.
don't believe I
So, we're going to say that it's a committee. You're now notified, and if you're gonna be upset about not having a full 10 days when you got 7, take it up at the committee meeting. It's out of order from here. Anybody else that wants to discuss anything further at PCRV? Yes, ma'am.
Just that I'm another person. You asked and I'm answering your question. I'm another person that never got a notice.
Okay, both
Are you
Josie.
on the
Are you on the
PCRB?
No, this is PCRB, there is 12 people.
Plus the chair.
Plus the chair and David.
Yeah.
You're not-
Okay,
I'm
so-
talking about the HD.
Okay, we're moving on. All right, folks, we're going to talk about rules. These are the same rules that were up at the previous meeting that were found to be not properly notified, so we've brought them up now. And here we go. Okay. I already covered that at the last meeting, so we're going to scroll by that. Those are the two resolutions that we'll be revisiting momentarily. All right. So the rule changes were noted in green, and wonderful. Well, looks like they were corrupted. So we're going to go to this specific language right here, and I'll find the other information momentarily when we're debating the resolutions. Okay. This here has to do with Section 4 under the rules, number 9. We are adding the language in green. This is under the HD caucuses here, right? Under our bylaws, the language in green is in the bylaws, that every committee, oh my gosh, that's not even right. My apologies. Somehow my file got corrupted. Oh, here it is. See? It's there. I'm mistaken. It's been a day and my eyes are getting old here. All right.
Can you zoom in on that section?
Yeah, we can.
That you're reading? I don't know if there's a way to do it or not.
There is. One moment. Since I find my cursor, here we go.
I can hit the light.
All right. So here we go. Under Article 3, Section 1. This is where the requirements are for precinct chairs to either serve on a standing committee, and we added or a team. That's the only change made. But because it's changing the rules, we're putting it before the executive committee. I'll entertain a motion to adopt that 2 words.
Brian Fletcher, 134, a motion to accept this.
Okay. Second. Ben Moody, precinct 181 has seconded. Do we need discussion on this? Okay. Well, and without objection, I'd like to go ahead and accept this. Everybody all right with that?
Yes.
Oh, so you would like to object on adding or team? Okay, so you'd like a vote? Okay.
I'll second that.
So, no discussion, but we're going to have a vote. Okay, all in favor of adding or team, please stand where you're at. I think we're pretty clear that this was a winner, or do we need to do a count as well? Okay, thank you. Let's move on. Article 4, duties of an officer or officers. We have a section that we would like to add that we have not yet described what that's going to be, but there's going to be executive team directors, and we're going to come up with a job description for them. But being that the section doesn't exist, we thought we'd add the section first so that we can then add a job description with your approval. So what I'd like to do is entertain a motion to add section 8 for executive team directors.
Jessica Holton, 97. I move that we add executive team directors, and
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Stephen Gilman, precinct 246.
Stephen Gellman, 246. Do we need discussion? Say it on the mic.
Brian Long, 125. I have a point of information. I don't understand what a blank section adds to the rules.
Before we write a job description, we need to have a title. So we're creating the title so that we can then come back and give you a job description.
Okay, but I'm going to ask another point of information.
Oh, I guess you are, yes. Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead.
So the question is what substantive changes if we adopt this today?
Nothing other than there's going to be a heading for us to work under for the next meeting.
Okay, so no change to the title. Nothing.
That language is all that's being added in the green.
Point of information.
Do we need further discussion? Okay, go ahead. Yes, sir.
Michael Street, Precinct 56. Just before I vote on this and possibly to approve it, I just want to know what you envision executive team directors. Can you give an example of what that might look like? What kind of people are we adding into this?
We already have executive team directors. They're already doing the job. This is just going to be a way to codify what their job actually
So
is.
which ones are those then?
All these team directors. So we have, what, 5 or 6 teams? They will all get a job description under this.
Okay, so they're the team directors.
Correct.
Okay.
This does not affect chairmen, it does not affect HD chairs, just for the directors, which is why we're using that specific language, executive team directors.
I just had never heard of called executive. That was
Well, that's, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other points of information, any other discussion necessary? So we have a motion, it's been seconded.
Hold on.
Oh,
Lori Kreitman, Precinct 89. It just seems pretty open-ended. Does this mean, it just seems kind of odd.
we're adding a section that does not exist, and then we're going to come back with the job description, which the EC will get an opportunity to review and approve.
Thank you.
You got
That's
it.
what I was missing.
Okay. I don't think we're going to need to do that. Do we have any other further discussion necessary? Can we go ahead and move to a vote?
Yes.
Now you're all going to get to stand if you're in favor. So if you're in favor, please stand. Do we need to do a count? Let's carry on. Thank you.
They were talking about having executive team directors in there so they can get a job description so that someone can be held
Go
accountable
ahead.
for doing certain tasks.
Brian DeLong, 125, point of order. 2/3 vote.
For the
I
executive
didn't
team
see. I don't doubt the vote.
That was not a 2/3 vote required.
Yes, to modify the rules under the rules.
No, it is not. You're wrong. Thank you.
I appeal the motion.
You're wrong. We need a majority vote unless we're changing the bylaws. This is part of the rules report. It only requires 50 plus 1. Thank you. Please return the mic. We're going to move on to the next one under section 5. Communications, we're adding /PR. It's just a description, title change. Nothing of substance is changing. Do we need discussion on this? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adopt. Brian Fletcher,
Brian Fletcher, 134, motion to adopt.
do we have a second?
Stephen Gelman, Precinct 246.
Stephen Gelman, 246, is seconded. Do we need any further discussion, any points of order, points of discussion? Okay, let's go on. All in favor of adopting, please stand. Are we comfortable that this is passed?
Yes.
All right, let's carry on. Okay, the next change is under Article 6. The State House District Executive Committees. Under Section 4, we're adding the language in green. This is going to bring the HD caucus / committees into alignment with all the rest of the committees, which states that if a meeting is not called, a majority of the committee may call a meeting. And I suspect the word majority was lost in translation, so that should read the majority of the committee. And I will be happy to change that, assuming that there's going to be discussion on this. Under the bylaws, all committees have a clause that requires that the chairperson calls a meeting of that committee if a majority of the members of the committee want that meeting. All this is doing is putting the House District Committees, or caucuses if you prefer, under the same rule. So I'll be happy to adjust that if, Brian, I need to borrow you for a minute to run the discussion while I update what it states.
Chairman, I'm not certain. Tim Bates, 112. Doesn't Article 6 identify a majority? Is that why we left a majority off?
It does, but it needs to be on here as well.
Okay.
It does, but it needs to be here as well.
Motion?
Yes.
To amend.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, point of information.
Chrissy Borderbergen, Precinct 82. I just want to state that I recommended this modification 4 years ago to put the power in the HD to be able to call a meeting with or without the chair or the HD chair, and I'm in favor of it.
Thank you.
Motion?
Mr. Canright, go ahead. Hold on. Mike's coming.
Robert Canright, Precinct 34. I have a motion to amend. And in the green words where it says, if your meeting is not called a committee, they call a meeting, I move to be, change the word committee to caucus. You notice the word caucus is used earlier in the same paragraph. I think it should be consistent and keep it as a caucus and change the word committee to caucus.
So
That's my motion.
So let me repeat. So thank you. So when the verbiage comes back up, we just change, it says committee to caucus, yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Will there be a second?
Yes, I'll second.
There's a second.
Greg Knapp, 75, I second.
Hold on.
Elise motion.
Did the secretary get all this second motion stuff?
I'm working on it.
Okay, so with the motion, we have to do a vote or no?
Yeah, I'll take one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I have amended it as per, but I left on committee and put slash caucus. Is that acceptable to you, Mr. Canright?
It says committee slash caucus.
It's not dark enough, that's why.
If a meeting is not called a majority of the, oh, I see, you said committee slash caucus.
Is that acceptable?
Would you just change it to caucus because it says caucus earlier?
Okay, if you look under the section, it says meetings of House District Committees.
Yes.
And then it says caucus underneath that. That's why I put the slash, so to clarify that whatever you call it, that's what we're doing. That's why I made that adjustment. So that's not what your motion is. That's why I'm asking you if you're accepting it.
I would like it to be the way I.
Okay, so we need to know, do we have a second for Robert Canright's getting rid of committee and just leave caucus?
Greg Knapp, 35. Can I make a friendly amendment?
You'll have to discuss that with Mr.
Let's just move on and have it.
Okay, do we need discussion or can we move to a vote? Tim, go ahead.
So I'm against adding caucus unless we want to
Tim
do
Bates,
caucus.
what's your precinct number, sir?
Tim Bates, 112.
Thank you.
I'm against adding caucus unless we do the slash caucus. All right, I'll, because all the way through Article 6, we talk about the State House District Executive Committee, and then one of the sections earlier, I can't believe it's either section 2 or 3, it talks about who is on that committee, and that is every precinct chair in that HD. So throughout the whole article, we talk about the State House District Executive Committee as a committee. When we actually do get together, it's considered a caucus. So that's the only thing that I'm saying. If you want to add the slash caucus, I'm good with that. But I don't think we need to add, go through and change the entire article to change from committee to caucus.
Okay.
May I respond?
Do we need any further discussion by anybody that has not spoken?
May I respond to that?
Well, you spoke in favor of this already. Should I let you speak again? Is that what you're asking for?
Yes, because it's a response and.
But
You asked, actually, shouldn't we go back and change, from State House District Executive Committee and change the Executive, Committee to caucus? And the meetings of the House District caucus?
And the reason I bring this up is that it's a real difference. When the rules change was made at the org meeting, and we changed the caucuses to committees to actually reduce the freedom and liberties of the people in the caucus. There are separate sets of rules for committees than there are for caucuses. A caucus has more freedom and more power to maintain its own business. And that is one reason why I believe we would really be better off, as you pointed out, being consistent and changing it from House District Committee to House District Caucus. Thank you, sir.
Point of information?
Mr. Kemp.
Only a question. Is a David Kemp, 109, is a committee an entity and a caucus an event? We don't look at it that way?
I don't think that there's any substantive difference under the RPT rules nor the Collin County Republican Party rules. I think it's a difference without distinction personally, but that's what we're going to vote on. So, at this point, we've got Robert Canwright's motion, which has already been moved and seconded. It's been discussed. Do you have anybody else that would like to speak against changing it to only say caucus? Do we have anybody else that is not spoken yet that would like to speak for changing it to just say caucus?
Mark Myers, Precinct 116. I just want everybody to look up at the screen. You'll notice we're talking about Section 4, and read the title to Section 4, Meetings of the House District Committees. Okay? So I am totally okay with to accommodate Robert's request that we include caucus in the language down there, but the very title of this section is dealing with House District Committees, so I don't think it makes sense to remove committees from the actual language that describes what's happening.
Okay, Mr. Gelman, did you have something to add for or against?
No, I'd just like to make a motion that we accept as written.
But that's not in order at this time.
Okay.
Right now, we've had all our discussion. The vote is going to be, do we strike the word committee and the slash and just leave caucus? Okay? So, is there any further discussion? Does we need any further clarification on what we're voting on?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes, precinct 2, leave record
Hold on,
number
hold on.
247. I would like clarification on, I have some additional information to add to this, if that's not in order right now.
So do you have a point of information?
Yeah, point of information.
So please share your point of information,
Before
Lee.
we vote on it, okay. Hang on, I gotta sit down. So this refers to Article 6 of the bylaws, which it doesn't say there, pursuant to
In the green, it says
yes.
pursuant to Article
Yes.
6 of the bylaws.
And though in Section 3, for those precinct chairs that are new or don't, read the bylaws like some nerdy people do, like me, it says if the county chair or chair of a standing committee fails to call a meeting, a majority of the members of the committee may call or demand a meeting, and the chair shall call a meeting within 15 days of such request. So this doesn't give the majority of the caucus or committee the ability to call a meeting if they haven't given notice to the HT chair. So I'm just doing that point.
They're calling for a meeting, and it's now a requirement of the HT chair to call the meeting and presumably chair the meeting. That's all it's doing, just like every other committee.
Right. But
Okay, so you understand that.
But there's 15 days notice.
There's not a notice beyond what's already required under the rules.
Right, Section 6.
So your concern is that this is going to abrogate the existing rules that relate to the amount of time?
No.
Then what is your question?
There's people that probably don't relate the two together, and that's what I was trying to do.
It should be irrelevant. If you've got half of your committee that tells you we want a meeting, it's your job to call the meeting, and you determine when the meeting is. Right?
Maybe it was
Right?
a point of clarification.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other clarification that we need on this?
No.
No.
Okay, so the vote is, do we slash or erase committee slash? So it would only read caucus. Okay, does everybody understand that? So if you are in favor of changing it to only read caucus, please stand. Robert, I think it's pretty clear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. So So we're going to adopt it as, well, I'm sorry, that was just the amendment. Now we're going to go back to the original motion, which is the green lettering as is written. So do I have a motion to adopt?
Yes, Ken Cook, precinct 219.
Stephen Gillen, I'll second 246.
No, that his motion failed, so it'll stay as. So what's currently on the screen is what we're voting for now. The amendment to erase committee / has failed, so we're going back to what's originally on the screen, just so we're all on the same page. It will read committee / caucus, just so that everybody's on the same page here. Okay, so the motion's been made, it's been seconded. Do we need any further discussion, or are we good to vote on this? We don't need to call the question if there's no discussion. Okay, so all in favor of adopting this change, if you have something, please stand so we can see you. Go ahead, take it away. Hold it right up to your lips.
Karen Rowley, precinct 182. So, I read this, it sounds lovely, except it says, notice of any caucus meeting shall be sent, blah, blah, blah. If a meeting is not called, if the committee may call a meeting if they want to. So, where here does it say they have to call a meeting? If I don't want to have a meeting, nobody in the caucus wants to have a meeting, HD doesn't want to have a meeting, then we don't have to have a meeting. I'm just reading that. Where does it say anywhere about having meetings? Yeah, I'm just asking.
That's out of order. That's not even relevant to the question that's at hand here. But to answer your question,
I had a question.
if you don't want a meeting, then you don't request the meeting. Oh, thank you. Okay. Do we need any further discussion before we move to our vote?
No, let's just vote.
Mr. Bates, what do you got for me?
I'll get this right. Tim Bates, 112. So I thought you just added majority in here. I didn't think you added the / caucus. Is that?
No, the majority was accidentally left off when I originally read it. That's what was supposed to be there. I fixed that while we were discussing the question of whether or not we were going to only make it a caucus or not. So all the words that are up there is the way it needs to be and what we're voting on.
Including the / caucus?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. One more. Let's go. Nope, he's up.
Dennis Clark, precinct 110.
In the way.
That word may after caucus. You may entertain a thought of.
You gotta put it to your mouth.
Please, should or.
Dennis, hold the microphone to your mouth.
Should we entertain a thought of changing the word?
Are you wanting to amend this?
Yes.
You're out of order. We cannot amend it in the middle. Thank you. All right. No, Tim, not right now. Let's.
It's got one word in there that's needed is.
Okay. So, for the purpose of this vote, let's stipulate that the word "of" is in there, and the grammatical error has been fixed because it takes longer for me to figure out how to pull that over there and do it than it's worth your time. So, the word "of" has magically appeared. All right. So, all in favor of adopting the language, including the mystery of, please stand. I don't think we need to go any further. Are we agreed? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, this is fast. Let's carry on. Okay, this is the first resolution of the evening. I don't know that you can read the whole thing on this page as is. I will try and make it smaller. You would have received this electronically prior to the last meeting. Oops. Okay. So it's going to be this one right here on the right. So please take a minute, read through that. I believe the author is here. And at this time, she will be happy to give her presentation as to what this is for and why you should support it. And then we can take on further discussion.
Debbie was from 209.
That's not in time.
This resolution is in support of the priorities that were selected at the convention in May of 2024, last year. We selected as part of the process from the precinct to the Senate district to the convention, 8,000 people went and chose these as their top 8 priorities. What we find right now is that we have the SREC that is picking their top 10, which is not the same as the top 8 that we chose at convention. We have the governor who has picked his emergency items that were not these same ones, and we have our lieutenant governor who has picked his top 40 that are not these 8. So basically this is just a resolution stating that we want to stick with the top 8 and we want to prioritize those over any other lists that are out there. And before final passage of any other legislation proposed with respect to any other topic. So with that, I move approval.
Okay, so we've got a motion.
I'll second.
Well, just to be clear, it came out of the Rules Committee, so the fact that it came in a report, we don't need a second or anything, it's just being put forward. At this point, do we need any further discussion other than what Debbie has provided? Tim Bates, you're up.
I wholeheartedly support this resolution.
Amen.
And down there at the bottom, it'll say that you can't see that we will hold our legislative folks responsible for this as a censurable offense. I think this is exactly what we need to do.
Okay. Do we need any further discussion on this? Okay. Not hearing any requirement. All those in favor of this resolution as written, please stand. I think we're going to call that passed. Just for grins, did anybody oppose it? Okay. We're going to go with unanimous just because apparently that matters sometimes. All right. Next one. A resolution to amend Texas Election Code. We have the author in the audience. We'll give her a couple minutes to explain what that's all about.
Dave Lindstrom, 209. Okay, so there is a law that's already on the books. It's Texas Election Code 276.019, which is titled Unlawful Altering of Election Procedures. Unfortunately, there is no penalty on this, and without a penalty, it's just the suggestion. And what we see is that we have election administrators, not in our county, but in other counties, where they will stand up in front of election judge training and say, as long as there's no penalty, I don't have to worry about it. We should not have that as an issue. It's basically, that's what impacts voter confidence, and we see after every election where there are issues, and those need to be addressed. So this resolution does 2 things. It asks our legislature to enact the needed penalties to remove any Secretary of State waivers that are circumventing law, and it sends a clear message that we consider election integrity non-negotiable. I will tell you that there are companion bills, SB 618 by Senator Sparks, and as of last week, I went to Austin, and Jeff Leach has I know, a message over Messenger. Jeff Leach has filed the bill, and it's already on the books for HB 2773. So those are already filed. We just need them to get through. This is a really important thing.
Okay.
With that, I move approval.
Be it further resolved that the Collin County Executive Committee considers taking any action to prevent or delay the legislative priorities of securing Texas elections as a censurable offense. Do we need any further discussion related to this? Mr. Donovan.
John Donovan, 137. Just point of inquiry. Are we listing the penalty?
Other than censure, is there like an actual, like, you go to jail or you get fined, or I don't know if we're listing or we're asking our representative to create the penalty. Is that it? Okay, I just wasn't sure. Thanks.
Do we need any further discussion on the resolution?
No.
Okay, hearing none, let's move to a vote. All in favor of adopting this resolution, please stand. All right, thank you all. I think we're going to call that passed. I'm not even going to ask if you were opposed to this. Here we go. All right. We discussed this. I believe it was voted down in the Rules Committee. But going forward, as per our directive, things that are brought up in Rules Committee but fail in committee will be shown to the Executive Committee. So that if there are 2/3 present that feel like it should have been brought forward, you'll have the opportunity to vote on that now, which would be suspend the rules and add this to the next Executive Committee meeting for discussion. So if there is anybody that believes that this is worthy of taking up at the next Executive Committee meeting, now is your time to stand up.
Can you read it? It's too small.
Can you read it? What is this?
The Rules Committee, currently all resolutions and all rule changes must go through the Rules Committee. This is going to create a carve-out for the Legislative Priorities Committee for only legislative priority resolutions. So that if Legislative Priority Committee says, we have these number of issues that we want to address, they can bring forth their own resolutions related only to legislative priorities. And that committee would be empowered to do that without having to do that because there is a timeliness issue, right? The legislature is only in session for 4 months. Sometimes they get a couple extra. So this would allow them to get their work done and present in the next Executive Committee meeting without having to go through the additional hurdle of going through the Rules Committee. So this would only change for 4 months out of every 2 years and would only affect the Legislative Priorities Committee. That was what was proposed. That was what was voted down in the Rules Committee. So if there are 2/3 present that would like to take that up in the next Executive Committee meeting, now is your opportunity to move that and vote on it. Tim?
Point of information. Tim Bates, 112. What was the vote of the Rules Committee on this?
I don't recall. It was a month ago, and I don't have that in my notes handy. I just know it failed. Lee?
Lee Breckenridge Ward 247.
Wait for the mic, please.
Lee Breckenridge Moore 247. So my legislative priorities, are those the top 8 that Debbie just that we just presented and voted on? Question.
The answer to your question is that would be based upon what came out of the last convention, which is what we're working off of. And as she previously mentioned, the governor came up with his items, and then the legislature came up with their items. There is some overlap, but very little, if any, if I recall that correctly. This is just going to allow for the Legislative Priorities Committee to be able to be heard quicker. The Executive Committee still maintains control over anything that comes out as the resolution. Mr. Knapp.
Craig Knapp, Precinct 75. Why did it fail the Rules Committee?
I don't recall. But based upon the mood of this room, I'm certain that it would fail if we were to try to move it forward. So being that nobody stood up and asked to have it moved, we're going to move on.
Point of information.
Well, I've asked twice. I'll get you in just a second. So because nobody said anything, I made that assumption. So if that assumption's wrong, I apologize. Cynthia, you're up. Please give the mic to Cynthia.
Cynthia Kroll, Precinct 84. I think there's some confusion, and my point of information is, could we have a clarification, a simplified clarification of what this change would dictate, and in very simple terms for people to be able to understand what exactly is addressed in this that was voted down by the Rules Committee.
Okay. Currently, right now, all resolutions, all rule changes must go through the Rules Committee before they can be presented. This would create a carve-out for the Legislative Priorities Committee. While the legislature is in session, they can bring forth their own resolutions bypassing the Rules Committee, thus saving approximately 30 days. As to why it failed, I don't recall. As to what the vote was, I don't recall. But the way we're going forward is we're going to make this available to you so that if the Rules Committee made a mistake and you feel strongly about it, you'll be given an opportunity to have it added to the next meeting. I don't see any clamor to do that. That's why I made the assumption that we were not going to reach 2/3. So, does that answer your question, Cynthia?
That does.
Thank you.
Could I?
You want to?
Cynthia Crowell, Precinct 84. I'd like to make a motion to vote on this.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, so just so we're clear, the proper motion here, and you don't know this, so that's fine. We're going to suspend the rules in order to take this up in the next meeting. In order to do that successfully, we would have to have 2/3. So we will have to count the vote unless it's 100%. So, do we need discussion on this before we move to a vote?
No.
Mr. Donovan standing.
John Donovan, 137. I think this would be considered a point of inquiry. Do we know who submitted this proposal to the Rules Committee, and are they here tonight?
If I recall correctly, it came either from Serini or somebody on his committee. And Mark Myers was also on my committee. He could maybe answer that because I don't recall. So if you please bring the mic to Mark Myers.
And then, I guess another point of inquiry, am I guess I'm confused about something, so I hope you'll clarify this. I thought the Rules Committee's job was to perfect resolutions brought to the Rules Committee to make sure it doesn't conflict with any bylaws or rules of the RPT or body, and to make sure it's proper English. I was not under the impression that the Rules Committee's job was to decide whether they thought proposals were valid or good or bad. They were just supposed to be perfecting them to come to us. I never understood the Rules Committee to be a gatekeeper of.
Thank you, Mr. Donovan.
So
Mark, would you like to answer his question? Please take him the mic.
Just as a point of clarification, Mark Myers, I'm on the Rules Committee.
What precinct?
Precinct 116. So it is my recollection, I'm getting very ancient, so I won't vouch for that recollection, but it is my recollection, and having several other members of the Rules Committee, a couple that are sitting right here with me, that when this was brought to us, it was Serini who brought that, and that we never voted on that, but that this was tabled for consideration, and that there was no vote on this particular one. Because I was scratching my head going, I'm looking at this and I'm going, I don't see what's particularly objectionable about such a resolution. And so that's my recollection, and that is, I believe, the recollection of at least two other Rules Committee members. And Tim Bates, you're back there. Was that your recollection?
Yeah, I wasn't opposed to this. I can't remember what was
Yeah.
said, and that's why I wanted to.
Yeah,
Okay, so
so
Cassidy, hold on one second, Cassidy.
Yeah, so this is what we were supposed to have, this Shelby, the chairman put this on the call, for the 10-day, with the 10-day notice. It wasn't something that had come through the Rules Committee, so we were trying to have a special meeting before the EC, and yeah, I don't think we decided just to table this because we couldn't make exceptions, for this.
Right, that you triggered my memory. It wasn't presented us in a timely fashion.
Right.
That was the issue. It wasn't presented to us in a timely fashion, and so we couldn't act on it at that point.
Okay, so, for the purposes of discussion, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say that that's all moot. The soonest we could deal with this would be at the next executive committee meeting, regardless. So whether we throw it back through rules, which is not going to meet until later next month, or we just say, you know what, we're gonna suspend the rules and bring this up in the next DC meeting, which you all have the right to do, we're going to put it to you. We have a motion to suspend the rules and put this on the agenda for the next meeting. And
Point of information. Is there any?
Hold on.
Name and precinct.
Cassidy Johnson, Precinct 92. Is there anything pertinent that we have to vote on at this meeting? Can it just go back to Rules Committee? I don't think we have any other.
time is of the essence, which is why I think we ended up doing it this way. We have other things that are on the agenda for tonight, and the next time Rules Committee is going to meet is after the next EC meeting. So by doing what I'm suggesting, which is suspending the rules now to take it up at the next meeting, it will get a potential to be approved much faster. And we can discuss it at the next meeting. We can modify it next meeting. We can do anything we want to this next meeting, but you can only discuss this at the next meeting, which is what, in 2 weeks? A little over 2 weeks? The only way we can do that is if we suspend the rules to have this added to the meeting for next. So we have a motion, we have a seconded, and now we have discussion?
We call the question.
I don't think we need to call the question if there's no further discussion, but I just want to make sure everybody knows what we're voting on.
Precinct 233. We should vote on
Okay, so without objection, we're going to move to a vote. All in favor of suspending the rules so we can take this up at the next executive committee meeting, please stand. It looks like we've well exceeded 2/3. Are we all comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the secretary, if you'll please note, this needs to be added to the agenda for the next DC meeting. And in the event that for whatever reason it's not on the call, please allow the grace. We discussed it now, we're going to catch it. Okay? Next item. How about that? We finished the rules report.
Yeah.
Now, if you bear with me, I gotta play this game again with this computer.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
One moment. Let me make sure I get this up so everybody can see where we're at, and we'll entertain any motions, okay? Does that say slideshow over there?
Yes. On the upper left.
Okay. Okay, so we're done with that. Okay, I know what I gotta do. Hang on so I can hear. The next item was going to be the minutes. Now, I'll get you. One moment. On the minutes, I've been in communication with the chairman earlier today. We have the rough draft of the minutes that was sent out. I have a revised version of the minutes. I also have one that was thoughtfully provided by somebody else. Due to all that, we're going to table the meeting minutes for the next executive committee meeting. So we can do this one of two ways. I can make the motion myself, but I don't want to do that. I don't think the chair should do that. So I will entertain a motion to table that for the next meeting. Do I have that motion?
John Donovan, 137. I'll make the motion to table that item to the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Jerry West, 122.
Jerry West, 122, has seconded. Do we need any discussion? All in favor, please stand. Okay, thank you very much. All right, now if you'll bear with me for just a minute here. I've heard that some folks are not fans of comments. So I'm going to just put something on the screen, take 30 seconds of your time, and then we'll probably move to adjournment unless there's something else pressing. And I know Mr. Kemp has a point of information or a point of order.
Point of order, I believe.
Go ahead, Mr. Kemp.
I see our friend Carson Underwood over here, and it seems like we skipped by introduction of candidates.
Oh, this is true. I was not aware we even had any candidates present. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. So if you are a candidate or elected official and we neglected you earlier, please stand up and Mr. Matt will bring you the microphone so you can introduce yourself and tell us where you're running and why.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Carson Underwood. I'm running for Plano City Council, Place 2. As we all know, we're looking to lower taxes, finding better fiscal responsibility, maintaining better flow of our traffic, and trying to find a way forward that doesn't involve a 20-year tax we all too often know as bonds. I hope to get a chance to speak to you at the end of this meeting, to get a chance to hopefully meet the precinct chairs and learn more about myself after the meeting. Again, my name is Carson Underwood.
Hey everybody, I'm Ken Cook. I am Allen City Council Place 3, and good to see you all here tonight. I'm glad we got all this knocked out.
Wendy.
Right up to your mouth.
Wendy Mattingly, Precinct 37, and I'm running for City Council in Blue Ridge.
Yes.
Okay, bear with me. I want 90 seconds of your time and then we'll adjourn, I promise. So I read this article earlier this week that talks about 3 groups of people in an old house. And I want you to consider what it means. I'm not going to cast aspersions, just something for you to consider. There's a group that's been there forever and is perfectly content with the way it is. They don't mind that the foundation's been eroded. They don't mind that the wallpaper's 40 years out of date. They don't mind anything. They're perfectly content and they don't want you changing it, period. The second group, they live in the house. Perhaps they have their room and they don't like their room, so they spend all their time, money, and effort to fix their room. They're only worried about their room. They ignore the fact that the foundation's been eroded. They ignore everything else as long as their room is perfect. Then there's the other group of people. They know the house has an eroded foundation. They know that it's out of date. Rather than fixing it, though, their solution is to burn it all down, scrape it to the floor, and start over. I'm not saying either group is right. I'm just saying that if you are in one of those groups, perhaps you ought to consider the other two before you take your action. We are in a constant battle, but we're spending time going after our allies and co-belligerents. The folks that are Democrats, the leftists, progressives, they're the enemies. Let's keep that. We've lost our focus. I'm asking you. And we're all guilty. Nobody's innocent, not casting dispersions. I go home and look at the mirror, so nobody's above that, in my opinion. Because strife is hurting us. We did a lot of quick work tonight. We were able to get things addressed. I would like to see that all the time. There are things that happen that upset people, legitimately. My phone number is on almost every email I send out. My email address is on every email I send out. I've been sitting here for the last 6 weeks on Tuesdays. I've had 3 people take me up on it. I don't take offense at that because we're all busy. We all have lives. Currently, I'm between employers, so I've invested that time doing that. If you have a problem, you have a concern, and you can't get a hold of Shelby, for whatever reason, I'm his number 2. Call me. Just because I'm his number 2 doesn't mean we agree on everything. That was one of the first things we agreed upon. We're not going to always agree, but you're the team leader. I got your back. And ultimately, as the EC, you have the power. You always have final say. So no matter what you think is happening, if you don't like it or it's wrong, call it out. The EC decides. I owned my mistake. Last meeting, we didn't get you the proper reading of the rules out. Okay. There was a solution that we could have utilized to get the resolutions. We didn't. So we covered it tonight. So my reminder is, you always have the power. Thank you so much for going without objection. We're going to adjourn and immediately move to the HD 89 caucus meeting.